Good evening. Oh, hi at the beach. Lovely to see you. And just snooping. So, today, it's the case I didn't want to have to talk about. It's in all the criminal cases I have read, the UK ones, in my entire time in the legal profession. This is probably the second worst case for me personally that I've had to read the details of. And it's only second to Fred and Rose West. So anyway, so obviously Ian Watkins was murdered yesterday in prison. And I spent the whole weekend, well, I spent since yesterday, since the news broke. What do I do? Do I talk about it? Do I not? And I think at the end of the day, there is a lot to talk about, not just the crimes themselves, like I would on my normal sort of crimes and trials segment. There were huge failings by the police. I think there's been huge failings by the prison service. So it's been good, but it's gone by so far. Yeah. Hopefully by next weekend we'll get the Steve Sauerwitz recording right. It's got to come sometime this year. Hello. Welcome. Thank you for joining. So yeah, I've put some slides together just to kind of have a little conversation, and I did this as a live so that people could share some thoughts and have like a bit of a conversation rather than just me, going right. So this is this, and this is what happened then, and da 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 da. I'm out of my comfort zone talking about this case. Obviously, the victims were incredibly young. They were incredibly vulnerable. They were let down by their own mothers, never mind this person. But I feel like just because I'm not comfortable does not mean that these important issues should not be highlighted. So, oh, hi, Annie. No, exactly. We're all on that page, trust me. We all feel like that. I'm really annoyed. I'm genuinely, when all this came out, I was really, really angry. I'm from South Wales. And in South Wales there's a community, right? He's from South Wales, not far, just down the road. It's a community. You actually, quite often cross paths and various things. But it's a community, real community spirit. And the band's songs were kind of really quite important. But some of them, they meant something to Wales. And the music was really, really good, actually. I can't fault the music. I personally thought it was great music. And he was talented. As a band, they were talented. So when the allegations broke, I was like, no. But when he went on to admit it, I was just like, I can't. I can't. I was just absolutely devastated. But we get a lot of that in the UK. I can't tell you how many huge figures that people have looked up to and idolized have turned out to be sex offenders in some shape or form. It's ridiculous. Oh yeah, so he was in a rock band called Lost Prophets. I'm going to go through all that anyway. I'm glad you raised this, actually, Annie. I'll do. I'm not. I've got no. Normally, when I do these kind of cases, like with the Jack the Ripper, I use the crime scene photos. So I have no photos. I have no video. I have no audio. I have no text. So there's nothing awful for this point in my slides. However, at the end of my slides, I will kind of probably give a disclaimer, because I have got the it's the sentencing remarks, because there was no trial because everyone pleaded guilty. So, you know, there's no great big case file to go through, thankfully. But there are sentencing remarks, and they do actually detail. The judge, you know, he goes over the charges and he explains in quite graphic detail what that charge is about. And I had planned to go through that at the end, and if people might find that distressing, so it gives people an option then at that point if they want to hear it or not. I think the charges need to be heard. Some people may find it too distressing, and I completely understand that, but I do think it's important. Yes, there's a lot of content about this case out there, so, and I'm sure we'll be seeing a huge wave of it as well. Now he's dead, so that's something. It's definitely a trigger warning. Yeah, what my bit with the slides is not. So you know, I kind of want you to feel reassured there. There's no graphic details or anything, because I'm trying to make this suitable for anyone who wants to listen. but the point at the end, and I will give a warning beforehand, goes into great detail. Okay, so let's begin. So I put together these slides just to basically sort of like this is where we started and then this is what happened, timeline sort of thing. So if anyone's got questions as well, please do put them in the chat, and I will try to get to them. Okay, so the case of Ian Watkins, from rock star to convicted sex offender, and he was one of the worst sex offenders in the UK. So the presentation examines one of the most disturbing cases in British criminal history, the fall of Ian Watkins, the former Lost Prophets frontman, who was convicted of horrific child sex offences. This case serves as a sobering reminder of how celebrity status can mask the most heinous crimes, and how systemic failures can enable abuse to continue unchecked. And that's a lot of my angle with this, actually, is, you know, the failings by the police, the glamorizing and sensationalism by the media, and the lack of focus and safeguarding for the victims. So that's where we'll end up. So the rise of a rock icon. Harry Road 12. No, his other band members were not involved. No, he was the only member of the band who was involved in any of this. Two of the children he abused were very, very young. Very young. One was a year old and one was 10 months. And it was the mothers, they had different mothers. It was the mothers of those children. They were fans of his, and they basically allowed him to abuse their children. And those two women went to prison, if that makes sense. It will all explain everything. But no, definitely not the other members of the band. I've only got one picture of the band as a whole in here, because they're not associated with any of this. Yeah, at the beach, the mothers did get off easy. I agree, but I can explain their sentences and how they got there. Oh, hi, Neil. Okay, so Ian Watkins was born on 30th of July 1977 in Merthyr Tydfil. It's quite a nice place, actually. He became the charismatic lead singer of Lost Prophets, a rock band that formed in 1997 that would go on to achieve extraordinary commercial success throughout the 2000s. Yeah, no, yes, it did. It really did. Like, it was like a shockwave around Wales. Neil, if you haven't heard the start, I will be reading after the slides. There will be a graphic part where I read the sentencing remarks from the judge, because there was no trial, so there's there's nothing from the trial itself, but they were all sentenced, and the judge explains each count in the sentencing remarks in quite graphic detail. So I will give people a warning when that is coming, but that will be at the end. So people have a choice as to whether they want to stay around and listen for it or not. It is quite hard. Right, okay. So the band released 5 studio albums, selling millions of copies worldwide. Their 2006 album, Liberation Transmission, reached #1 in the UK albums chart, cementing their status as one of Britain's most successful rock acts. Lost Prophets commanded huge arena crowds and enjoyed international success, touring extensively across Europe, North America, and beyond. And Watkins appeared to be living the rock star dream. And when I was, it was in 2004. I remember I was in Swansea University doing my law degree, and they had a student village there, like student halls of residence, which was off-site. And I remember I bought the album, their second one, called Start Something, and I was so chuffed. And that's when I first heard of them. So, the public persona versus the private reality. Watkins consistently requested private dressing rooms whilst on tour, creating physical barriers between himself and others. This isolation proved instrumental in concealing his criminal activities. His fellow bandmates remained completely unaware of his dark secret life. They would later express profound shock and horror upon learning the truth about their frontman. Heavy drug use became increasingly prevalent, further distancing Watkins from the band and enabling his descent into depravity. His addiction intertwined dangerously with his abusive behavior. And so when he was growing up, one of the things that was quite unusual in this case was because I've done I've studied criminology as well, and many, not all, but many sex offenders, when you look back at their upbringing and what contributed to, what were factors that kind of led them to the offending, many of them had some kind of disjointed upbringing or childhood. They'd been abused, they'd suffered something, or they were in poverty, or they've been bounced from care home to care home. None of this was actually in Ian Watkins' life. He had no mental illness, no diagnoses, not even ADHD or anything like that. He'd lost his father at a young age. His father had passed away, but his mum remarried, and he had a really good upbringing with his mum and his stepdad. He was a straight-A student. He went to University of Wales in Newport and got a first-class honours degree in graphic design. So, and he was actually he was teetotal. Before he was in the band, he was teetotal. He didn't drink, he didn't take drugs, nothing. It appears to be, and his family have sort of come out and said this as well, that as his fame increased, there seemed to be some kind of shift, and that's when he moved towards drugs and alcohol. Hi, Christina. Thank you for coming. So, so it was, he was not your typical profile for someone who would be carrying out these kinds of acts. Okay. So this is the one and only photo of the band as a whole. During their peak, Lost Prophets achieved significant commercial success. They became a prominent name in the rock music scene. Their albums garnered critical acclaim and sold millions worldwide, earning them a devoted fan base and headlining slots at major festivals. Ian Watkins cultivated a charismatic and energetic public persona, often lauded for his stage presence and songwriting. This carefully constructed image allowed the band to enjoy widespread popularity and presented Watkins as a celebrated figure in music, completely masking his horrific actions that would later come to light. So we had the first known abuse incident in 2007. This involved a 16-year-old fan. At the time, I think he was 20. Yeah, 20. So he met a 16-year-old fan following a concert. He forced this girl to dress as a schoolgirl whilst he filmed her. And they were doing oral, vaginal, and anal sexual acts. Then he urinated on her face and demanded she drink it, which demonstrated his misogynistic and sadistic mindset. The incident was indicative of Watkins' deeply disturbed psychology, his need to dominate, degrade, and document his abuse. The victim's youth and vulnerability made her an easy target for manipulation. Yeah, sorry about that, Neil. Sorry, bear with me 1 second. Okay. So after the incident in 2007, in 2008, there was another incident involving another 16-year-old fan. It was a very similar pattern. He filmed this young fan, performing oral sex on him. During the footage, he could be seen snorting what he claimed was cocaine. It was white powder, clearly visible on the camera. This evidence demonstrated how his drug use had become inextricably linked with his sexual abuse. Yeah, it's not one of his better haircuts. There was, when he had the shorter hair, he looked much better. But yes, that one is pretty bad. So the combination of substance abuse and sexual exploitation revealed a man spiraling deeper into depravity, with each incident emboldening him to commit increasingly serious crimes. And although in the UK the age of consent is 16, I will just say that. However, this was considered, it was still considered problematic because of the power imbalance and use of his celebrity status. So he used his fame and position as a successful musician to gain access to vulnerable young fans. Hi, Bamps. He exploited the power dynamic between rock star and admirer and fan to coerce victims into abusive situations. And the private dressing rooms that he insisted upon served as isolated locations where abuse could occur away from witnesses. The early incidents with teenage fans demonstrated Watkins' established pattern of predatory behavior. However, these crimes would pale in comparison to the truly horrific offences that were yet to be uncovered. His abuse was escalating, both in severity and in the vulnerability of his victims. Yeah, it is. Don't disagree with that. Okay. So these are the serious crimes that led to his downfall. The depths of Ian Watkins' depravity became fully apparent with the discovery of crimes committed in 2012. These offences represented such extreme abuse that they shocked even experienced prosecutors and judges. And I will say they shocked me. And I've read hundreds of, cases, criminal cases of all kinds. And this is why, because when I qualified in family law, and it is like, this is why I didn't like family law. The things you see, it's not all divorces and who's getting the home. There's a lot of abuse by families to children, abuse by husbands to wives, and vice versa. And it is incredibly hard. However, this case topped all of that. He grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth and with the fame, though thought he was above the law. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so conspiracy with two mothers. Watkins conspired with two women identified in court as Woman B and Woman P. So we never learned their real names. So I know if they're still in prison, they're coming to the end of their sentence. I can't tell you if they are still in prison or not because there's no identifying information about them. So their identities were hidden, and they've probably been given new identities. Watkins conspired with two women identified in court as Woman B and Woman P to sexually abuse their own infant children. Woman B was the mother of a 10-year-old boy, and Woman P was the mother of a 1-year-old girl. These women were manipulated into betraying the most fundamental duty of motherhood. Watkins attempted to commit oral and anal rape on infant I B, that's the little boy. One of the babies whose mother had been groomed into facilitating the abuse. The child was less than 1 year old. Not content with committing these heinous acts, Watkins recorded the abuse on video and actively encouraged the mothers to continue abusing their own children even when he was not present. And as I say, at the end, when I read the sentencing remarks, the graphic nature will be there, all the context. It is going to be a hard listen. Oh, yeah, exactly. That was an awful case. That was such a bad case, the Jamie Bulger case. The only difference, the difference for me is, right, is this is a grown-ass man. I don't defend the two kids that tortured and killed Jamie Bulger by any stretch, but also they were 10 years old. So this was a grown man in his 20s and 30s. Okay. Yeah, and he had the mothers of these children to continue abusing the children when he was not actually physically present, and he had them photograph themselves do things to their children and send it to them, or do it over video, over Skype, whilst he masturbated. Betrayal of trust. So mothers' active involvement represented a catastrophic betrayal of their children's trust. They facilitated and participated in the abuse, manipulated by Watkins' influence. Absolutely, Annie. Absolutely. It's a year for I think for me, but I think for a lot of people between this and Ryan Reynolds, I don't know. I think I question, like, have I just got a bad judge of character? There's all these people that I adored at one point turn out to be the biggest assholes known to man. And it's just a recurring theme of it. So we have some statistics. Scale of the abuse. When the police finally searched Watkins' computers and devices, they uncovered evidence of extensive involvement in child sexual abuse material and extreme pornography. The digital trail revealed the true extent of his depravity. So there were 90 indecent images of children between 2 and 14 years old. That was one of the statistics I found, but I'm sure I've seen a statistic much bigger than that. It was like several terabytes of indecent images. But this is specifically indecent images of children between 2 and 14 years old. There were 22 bestiality images, which is pornography involving animals. And there were 13 charges in total of sexual assault and conspiracy. The sheer volume and nature of the material demonstrated that this was not isolated behavior, but rather a systemic pattern of the most serious sexual offending. Watkins had amassed a disturbing collection that spanned various categories of illegal and extreme content. I'll quickly have a look, actually, because I am sure there is a lot more. I think overall, image-wise, there was a lot. Yeah, that's it. He was found to have 27 terabytes of data that was considered to be child abuse footage and photos. 27 terabytes. That is a massive amount. That's I can't even figure out. I can't even imagine how much it is. So a terabyte is equal to 1 million. Is it 1 million? Is about 1 trillion bytes. Okay. So 1 terabyte unit is equal to 1 trillion bytes, or 1,000 gigabytes. Gigabytes are GB, which we all know. Most smartphones today, I think I can't remember, is it like they hold like 200 storage, but depending on what phone they've got, it's like 16 gig of data. So that's what your entire phone holds. It's like your standard smartphone holds about 16 to 32 gig of data, depending on which one you get. And this guy had 27 terabytes of porn. Yep. Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to explain what it would look like. I can't do it, but it's like so much. So much. I can't imagine how many devices he would have needed as well to have held on to all of that. So yeah, that's disturbing. Okay. So this is the court sketch. In December 2013, Ian Watkins, former lead singer of Lost Prophets, appeared at Cardiff Crown Court. He faced severe charges related to the child sexual abuse material, conspiracy to rape a baby, and possession of extreme pornography. The court proceedings laid bare the horrific extent of his crimes. The gravity of the charges and the overwhelming evidence presented led to widespread public shock and condemnation, marking a dark chapter in criminal history. You could cover every road in Neath with that much of it. Not just Neath Patalba as a whole, as the entire county. No. I don't know. I mean, that hair's wild, isn't it? So the legal battle, and this is a bit that really kind of pissed me off, was there were so many missed opportunities. So he was arrested in December 2012, following a police search that was the police search was actually for unrelated drug charges. But during the search, they found indecent images of children on his computers and digital devices. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. I was in the Diddy courtrooms. Yeah, because I was on CJ's channel when we did an episode together where she was just focusing on all the courtroom sketches, and they were just wild. 13 serious charges. So he was formally charged with 13 child sex offences, including the most serious charge of attempted rape of a baby under the age of 1 year. Each charge carried the potential for substantial prison time. There were obviously the co-defendants identified the two mothers, woman B and woman P. They were also arrested and charged with facilitating and participating in the abuse of their own children, which, as a mum myself, and I'm sure many people, no one here will disagree with me, that is quite an unimaginable thing That goes against all maternal instincts to allow someone to do that to your own child, to any child, but especially to your own child. And in fact, their involvement actually shocked investigators. The arrest marked a culmination of years of missed warnings and ignored reports. Finally, the evidence was so overwhelming that action could no longer be avoided. Okay, so highlights of the trial. In November 2013, this was the following year, so nearly a year, after initially denying all charges, Ian Watkins pleaded guilty to multiple counts on the day his trial was due to begin. Last-minute admissions spared victims from having to testify about the horrific abuse they had endured. The guilty pleas came only when Watkins realised the evidence against him was insurmountable. He had hoped to avoid conviction until the very last moment. There was judicial condemnation. Judge Mr. Justice Royce, presiding over the case at Cardiff Crown Court, described it as plumbing new depths of depravity. His words captured the profound shock throughout the legal system. The judge noted that Watkins showed a complete lack of remorse for his actions, viewing his victims merely as objects for his own gratification, rather than human beings deserving of protection and dignity. Oh yeah, Mia. I will let her in a minute. She wants me to open the door. Let her in. 1 second, sorry. Come on. Your fans have said hello to you. Okay. Yeah, so I got Mia joining me now. It's always good to have a therapy dog for these things. I find it so hard to go through to talk about these kind of cases. It's not that I want to bury my head in the sand. It's just like it really hits me in the feels, and this is why I did not follow cases such as like Diddy and so on and so forth, because the details were just stomach churning. However, this case is on my doorstep. Not just in the UK, but in Wales. So I feel like for me, there's just finally getting some shit off my own chest now about how I feel about all of this. So I've got a quote here from Judge Mr. Justice Royce, actually. Those who have appeared in these courts over many years see and deal with a great deal, but this case breaks new ground. And I particularly picked that quote because he sums it up perfectly. Not just the average public, professionals, people who deal with seeing these kind of things day in, day out as part of their job, social workers, the police, prosecution, the Crown Prosecution Service, the investigations and all that. Every single person who dealt with this case was shocked. This is not just like, oh, another day at the office. This was, wow, we've just unlocked an entirely new level. So, sentencing. This is the overview. So Ian Watkins was sentenced to 29 years imprisonment. He was also given a further 6 years on license, which means that after he is released from prison, he's basically he's got a further 6 years to serve where he cannot put a foot wrong. He was ordered to serve a minimum of 20 plus years before parole eligibility. Of note, he also subsequently went on to gain a further 10 months added to his sentence for possession of a mobile phone in prison. The charges included attempted rape of baby, sexual assault of a child under 13, conspiracy to rape a child, possession and distribution of indecent images. Woman B. Now, Woman B and Woman C, Woman B and Woman P actually got the same starting point of prison time because they'd basically committed the same offences with different children. Woman B got a lesser sentence because she pleaded guilty straight away at the earliest opportunity. So she got a reduction of a third of her sentence. Woman P waited, like Ian Watkins, until the actual day the trial was due to start. So it was like the last minute, but it still was a guilt. She entered a guilty plea, which spared the jury and the victims from having to endure a trial. So, like Ian Watkins, she was given 10% reduction in sentence. So Woman P got 14 years imprisonment, and that is the mum of the 10-month-old baby. Mother who facilitated abuse of her own child, conspiracy to rape, sexual assault of a child, taking and distributing indecent images. Woman P had the same charges. She is the mum of the 1-year-old girl, but she got 17 years imprisonment. She got longer because she only pleaded guilty much later. The sentences reflected the gravity of the offences and the need to protect the public from these dangerous individuals. The judge made clear that these were some of the most serious crimes he had encountered in his judicial career. So we had a bunch of missed opportunities by South Wales Police. Between 2008 and 2012, South Wales Police received numerous reports about Ian Watkins' behaviour. Despite multiple opportunities to investigate and potentially prevent further abuse, these warnings were systematically ignored or dismissed. There were 8 formal reports from multiple individuals who had come forward with concerns about Watkins' behaviour towards children and young people. There were 3 internal police intelligence logs where systems had flagged Watkins as a person of concern on 3 separate occasions. Ian Watkins' own ex-girlfriend repeatedly reported Watkins' behaviour to police. He even sent messages, admitting what he wanted to do with children. When she tried to take them to the police station, they dismissed her. They said that she was, just jealous of his celebrity. But she repeatedly reported him to the police at great personal risk to herself. In 2009, critical evidence was found on a mobile phone, but was inexplicably ignored despite its relevance to the allegations. And then some officers dismissed reports due to perceived lack of credibility of complainants and bias towards believing a celebrity. Just I think that's all there was. I'd say that's all there was. That's more than enough. I mean, his ex-girlfriend on 3 occasions took a laptop to the police station and let them know it contained an indecent image of a child, and no one even looked at it. So that's South Wales police are the worst. Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, I remember the Clidic murders. Yeah. Ah, yes, we do, Vamps. We have 2-tier Starmer. This is how ridiculous this is, right? And I'm going to. I've now had enough of not saying things about things that need to be said. The UK is in a hell of a mess, so I will be doing a video on why people are being put away for tweets. I will be doing a video on this digital ID bullshit that they're trying to push on us. I will be doing a lot going forward because so far I've been solely the Lively Bold only case, and whilst that's still got another 6 months, it's not going to run forever. And there's more going on in the world than that as well. So yes, we have 2-tier Starmer. Now, to put it into context, right? They ignored all these warnings about things that were on his devices. How long's it been? Like 13 years ago? If it has going on today, all that someone would have had to do was go and say, oh, he's tweeted something about, I don't know, trans women are men. Something like that. He that's literally all it takes now in the UK is for someone to go and say, he's put out a social media post and I'm offended. The police would have been round there in a blink of an eye. That's okay. I can talk my way out of it. Oh, the love. Yeah, no, they are absolutely awful. They are absolutely awful. If it's uploaded from outside the UK, would that be bad? Are we talking about tweets here? If a tweet is uploaded from outside the UK, because many of the people who are actually arrested for these quote unquote illegal tweets, they're just resharing other people's tweets, and it's not something they've written themselves. They're just like reposted something. It's absolutely mental. Oh, me making a video. Yeah, I'm not worried. I'm not. I'm not particularly worried. I mean, I'm not. What I've said so far. Thank you. What I've said so far is within the bounds of the law, so I am careful there. The father guide. Oh, Graham Linehan. Yeah, that was terrible what they did. That was absolutely terrible. Thank you. I adore you. I am okay. I mean, to be honest, if they come and arrest me, then I'll just get hold of like someone huge, like black belt barrister, and be like, here, make a scene. Plaster it all over social media. Thank you, everyone. I will stay safe. Don't worry. I will. This is it, right? Is I'll do a full video. I mean, it's the Public Order Act has been misinterpreted. That's one side of the problem. But the other problem is the UK has free speech, but free is in so far that you can't say anything that is, incites violence or is grossly offensive, right? Which 10 years ago, I agreed with that because I think that's a fair balance. However, what people find offensive has been stretched to beyond recognition, and now just about everything fits under that umbrella, which is a ridiculous situation. But yeah, I hopefully. Oh, thanks, Annie. Yeah, hopefully, we had the other day, we had the ruling, just to kind of diverge a little bit. A man was actually found, what was it? Yes, a man was convicted for burning a Quran. Now, I don't like books of any books being mistreated. No, it's something I've grown up with my father. Like my dad doesn't like books being overly opened up where it breaks the spine, or he doesn't like the corners being folded. He really, really, I don't know. It's such a pet peeve that for him, a book should be respected. And I've kind of grown up with that myself, because a lot of law books, like when you read law books, they're kind of leather bound and quite old as well. So you have a respect for them. You don't write in them. You don't fold corners and pages and so on and so forth. And you just generally take care of books. So I don't agree with burning books as a principle, regardless of whether it's a religious book or not, of any religion. However, he was convicted for an religiously aggravated public order offence. He has had his conviction successfully overturned on appeal, and that happened the other day, where the court basically said, well, there is no offence of blasphemy in our law, which there isn't. We don't have that in our law anymore. And the judge said that burning a Quran, it may be an act that many Muslims find deeply upsetting and offensive. However, the criminal law is not a mechanism that seeks to avoid people being upset. And we've now got that shift coming again. So where finally the other day someone actually, just snooping, it actually is, it was classed as a hate crime. It's ridiculous. Burning flags is classed as a hate crime too, unless it's the UK flag. Putting up the UK flags are considered a hate crime at the moment. It's wild here. It's going to be a whole video on its own, that is. So I'm not going to keep going on about that, but yeah, except Colleen's. Yeah, so we had some common sense finally, where this this man's ridiculous conviction was overturned on appeal. So it gives me some kind of hope, I guess. But we go back to this. So yeah, we had many, many missed opportunities for the police to do something. And about another 4 or 5 years passed from when they were first contacted with concerns until the point where they arrested him on a completely unrelated charge, and happened to come across all of this, all these indecent images. So as a result of the failings, the police South Wales Police were referred to the Independent Police Complaints Commission, who, in my personal experience, are utterly useless. However, following his conviction, Watkins' conviction, the IPCC conducted a thorough investigation into South Wales Police's handling of the reports, and their findings were damning and revealed systemic failures at multiple levels. California must pass law to censor what we say online about certain things. Really? Wow. Welcome to the UK, Christina. So there was a lack of personal curiosity. IPCC found that officers showed a profound lack of open-mindedness and professional curiosity when assessing the allegations. They failed to follow basic investigative procedures that might have uncovered the truth years earlier. Credibility assessments. Reports were dismissed based on subjective judgments about the credibility of complainants. Officers appeared to give greater weight to Watkins' celebrity status than to the serious nature of the allegations being made against him. The eventual arrest in 2012 was triggered not by the multiple child abuse reports, but by an unrelated drugs offence, which happens far more often than you think, far more often than it should. This meant that children continued to be abused whilst police failed to act on specific warnings about sexual offences. Critical failure. The IPCC concluded that if South Wales Police had properly investigated the earlier reports, Watkins could have been arrested years sooner, potentially preventing the most serious offences against infants from ever occurring. He was arrested on an unrelated drugs charge, and whilst they were investigating, they found indecent images on his laptop and device. So, yeah. People like Ian Watkins have been, yeah, I agree with you. They are being protected by the UK government. They certainly were, and there is mention of that actually further on. But this guy was definitely, in the nicest way possible, he was Britain's answer to Jeffrey Epstein. Okay. So at the heart of this case are the children who were subjected to unimaginable abuse, the infant victims who were too young to understand what was happening to them will carry the consequences of these crimes throughout their lives. Yes, Annie, just like Jimmy Savile. I could write a long list of all of the various people who have either, who have turned out to be sex offenders. And we've got 2 on the go now who have been currently accused. We've got Russell Brand, and to be very clear, he's not been found guilty of anything, he's just been charged. And DJ Tim Westwood has just been charged with 4 counts of rape. But we've got loads and loads of people. Yeah. So the teenage victims, we've obviously got the infants, but there was the teenage victims. They were exploited and manipulated by Watkins during the earlier period of his offending, have had to come to terms with being abused by someone they admired. The betrayal of trust compounds the trauma of the abuse itself. Oh yeah, Hugh Edwards. Yes. That shocked me as well. Public advocacy groups and child protection organisations have demanded not only justice for these specific victims, but also systemic reform to prevent similar cases in the future. Support services for survivors of child sexual abuse have emphasised the importance of believing victims when they come forward, regardless of the status or celebrity of the accused perpetrator. And I do think that should be the default starting position. So we had we had a statement from the NSPCC, that's the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, it's a UK charity. The head of service development, Des Mannion, his quote at the time, "It's difficult to fathom how any human being could stoop so low as to abuse babies and young children. Watkins used his celebrity status to manipulate and abuse, but it's important that we remember the bravery of the victims who came forward to enable him to be brought to justice." You know, you're not wrong. There have been several cases of high-ranking kind of officers at kind of these abuse charities and so on and so forth who have actually turned out to be abusing people, and yeah, it turned out to be a cover. This is going to sound controversial, but I'm going to say it as it is, right? Because having experienced domestic abuse myself, right? If I needed like a shelter, you know, I needed to go somewhere to get safe. We have domestic violence shelters, women's refuges. They're usually run by charity, and there was a big outcry because one of the ones in Scotland, I don't know if it's Women's Aid or Rape Crisis, was actually run by a trans woman, a biological man. Regardless of any intent or motive, and I'm not saying that there was any bad intent or motive, but as a woman, when you're trying to run from a man to feel safe, that's the last thing that you need. And it's so tone deaf to hire someone for the sake of inclusion. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you remember, Neil, but like we had years ago, it was Scotland again. They were advertising for period advisors, and they actually, I'm not even kidding you, they put a man in the role. There's a period advisor, menstruation advisor, a man. That it wasn't even a trans woman, it was just a man. Okay. So the NSPCC statement highlighted several crucial points that emerged from the case. Firstly, the organisation emphasised that Watkins' celebrity status should never have been a factor in assessing the credibility of the allegations against him. Secondly, they praised the courage of those who came forward, particularly given that earlier reports had been dismissed or ignored. The statement served as a reminder that the focus must always remain on the victims and their experiences, not the perpetrator's fame or public profile. The charity called for continued vigilance in protecting children and for improvements in how allegations of abuse are investigated, regardless of who the accused might be. Croynault Junior School in Kimler. Oh, I know that school. Had a peak teacher. Peak or PE? For 20 years and ignored complaints about him. He's still in jail. Oh. No, that's bad. There was one in the... I'm kind of talking to Stuart here because he would probably know the name of this place. I remember there was a teacher in a primary school in Maesmachnog. He got put away as well for like child, I don't know if it was child sex offences or having indecent images. Yeah, Maesmachnog school. Right. Okay. Band fallout. So to be very clear, I don't know if it's true or not, but the band have been always maintained that they had no idea. And I will qualify that and say that, in my sort of experience in law, we absolutely see that all the time. People literally live double lives. And the people who are closest to them have no idea of this dark side of them. So, no, it's fine. Don't worry. You're not hogging the chat. It's nice that we can kind of have this kind of back and forth anyway, because I know the places that you're referring to and you know the places I'm referring to. Yeah, so the band's position is they knew nothing about it, and they wouldn't have worked with him if had they known, because the other four members, between them they had 8 children. So this guy was in contact with the band members, their own children. Now, there's no suggestion he did anything untoward towards them, but that's kind of the horror for them as well. And I know that one of the boys, Lee, had actually he was one of the original founding members of Lost Prophets, and had actually grown up with Ian Watkins. They'd been friends from childhood, so he was really shocked. And as he said, the first shock was the allegations. At that point, they were just allegations. But then a year later, when he actually turned around and said, he admitted the offences, there was a second shock. So at the beach, are you aware of this teacher as well at Crying Out Junior School? It's like, are we all from the same part of Wales? Anyway, so the remaining members of Lost Prophets faced an impossible situation. They immediately disbanded the group following Watkins' arrest in December 2012, even before the full extent of his crimes became publicly known. The band members issued a statement expressing their profound shock and horror at the revelations. They emphasized that they had been completely unaware of Watkins' criminal behavior and condemned his actions in the strongest possible terms. For musicians who had spent years building a successful career, the discovery that their frontman was a child sex offender was devastating. Their professional legacy was irrevocably tainted by association with Watkins. Several former Lost Prophet members went on to form new bands, attempting to rebuild their musical careers. However, they continued to face difficult questions about whether they should have known about Watkins's behavior. The case serves as a stark reminder that predators can operate in plain sight, successfully concealing their crimes even from those closest to them. I well believe that they didn't have any idea, because he was known for wanting for things like, isolate himself. They would go on holiday somewhere. He would choose to spend his time in his home, in Wales. Their dressing rooms, they would share a dressing room. He had to have a separate one. There was there were things I could understand. And I've seen it time and time again as well, where people really do, they have a different personality around the people closest to them. Okay. Yeah, he did a really good job. So, the infamous mugshot. So, prison sentence and conditions. Ian Watkins was housed in HMP Wakefield, Her Majesty's Prison Wakefield. This was a Category A high security prison. It's supposed to be one of Britain's most secure prisons, and it houses some of the country's most dangerous criminals, including many convicted of serious sexual offences. So he had a 29 years plus sentence. That was his custodial sentence, was a 29 years. Then he had an additional 6 years, on license. He faced the prospect of spending the majority of his remaining life behind bars. He would need to serve a minimum of 20 years before becoming eligible for parole. As a high-profile child sex offender, Watkins required protection from other inmates. Sex offenders, particularly those who have abused children, occupy the lowest position in the prison hierarchy and are frequently targets of violence. Which brings us to this. So in August 2023, he was actually attacked by another inmate whilst in custody. The assault resulted in injuries. They were reported as non-life-threatening at the time. What happened was he was actually held hostage for 6 hours, during which time he was beaten, and they made a makeshift, I don't know what they did with a toilet brush. I don't know whether it was a handle and they kind of somehow managed to get like a sharp shard on the end, and they stabbed him in the neck with it. He was taken to hospital. He was injured, but it wasn't life-threatening. The incident highlighted the particular dangers faced by sex offenders in the prison system. Despite being held in a high-security facility with significant protective measures, Watkins remained vulnerable to violence from fellow prisoners. The attack demonstrated the deep revulsion that even hardened criminals feel towards those convicted of child sex offences, particularly crimes as extreme as those committed by Watkins. And the prison were aware of the risk to Ian Watkins. Because I'm just to share this. This was a news report from the 19th of December, the day he went to prison, 2013, where the General Secretary of the Prison Officers Association commented clearly that he will be at serious risk of self-harming and suicide, and keeping him safe, ensuring his safety was going to be challenging. So they acknowledged that the day he started his sentence. Okay. Thank goodness for the lifers taking care of their own. Yeah. Although, do you guys do life sentences? Sometimes it seems that you give guys. Yes, we do have whole life sentences. Here, a life sentence does not necessarily mean you're in prison for the rest of your life. It can mean that you're in prison for 20, 30, 40 years, and then you might come out, but then you'll be on license. So like we said, Ian Watkins, even after he came out of prison, he had to spend another 6 years on license. For people who are given life sentences, if they don't do a full life custodial sentence, then they would spend the rest of their life on license. So anything they do that they shouldn't do, any breach of the law, no matter how small, would see them back in prison. Whole life sentences in the UK are quite rare. So to spend your whole life in prison is quite rare. It's usually reserved for the worst of the worst. It's not like America where, a lot of people who commit murder in America might go away for, well, you guys have still got the death penalty, but if people don't get the death penalty, that quite often they will go away for life without possibility of parole. Here, we're more likely to put them away for decades rather than whole life. It is like what you call probation. We call it probation as well, but I'm just using the technical term on license. But yes, it is probation. Yes, the Yorkshire Ripper did die in deck jail, but so did Myra Hindley, and I'm pretty sure Rose West won't see the light of day again. No, it's okay, Justine, that's fine. I should probably just explain. I forgot that some of the differences, but yes, it is the same as probation, basically, lifelong probation. Yes, Ian Huntley definitely needs to follow suit. He's awful person. Yes, so that's the previous prison attack. He was stabbed in the neck, but he survived. 2 years later. So yesterday, Ian Watkins died following another violent attack whilst in custody at Wakefield Prison. He was pronounced dead at the scene. So what happened was the two inmates had been arrested on suspicion of murder. We do know that his throat was slit. Yes, I will cover the Moors murder. It's not a bragging point by any stretch, but the UK does have some, like the murder stories here are, they're interesting to tell, usually many years later. But yeah, they are interesting to tell. I will do the Moors murders, I will do the Yorkshire Ripper, and I will do the Fred and Rose West, but my goodness, I will need therapy after that one, because that is honestly, even Jeffrey Dahmer was, I personally didn't find Jeffrey Dahmer's story as bad as Fred and Rose West. I don't know why. It was. Ugh. Yeah, it is. Well, there's two perpetrators in there, so you could do separate, couldn't you? Really? Okay. So yes, so Ian Watkins had his throat slit yesterday morning and was pronounced dead at the scene. The incident marked the end of one of Britain's most notorious child sex offenders, though it came through violence rather than natural causes. Don't do Fred West just yet. Give yourself time to be ready. I don't think I'll ever be ready for that. I'm still traumatized from reading the case file at the time. Like, honestly, it's the worst thing I've ever read in my life. The actual detail is horrific. It's so bad. I will need warnings all over it, my videos. Okay, so the attack. Watkins was attacked by other inmates in what appears to have been a targeted assault. The violence proved fatal, with the emergency services unable to save him. 2 men have been arrested on suspicion of murder. Police have launched a full investigation into the circumstances of Watkins' death. The incident highlights ongoing concerns about violence in prisons, particularly against sex offenders who face constant threats from other inmates. Whilst Watkins' crimes were horrific and deserved severe punishment, his death through violence raises important questions about prison safety and whether the state can adequately protect all prisoners regardless of their offences. And whilst, I mean, I'm not, yes, the people who killed him have done society a favour. I will be the first one to say that. However, then if I go step into my professional mind, prison service has a duty of care to prisoners, regardless of what crime they've committed. So I suppose my question is, this is one of the UK's most secure prisons. How the hell did the same guy get stabbed in the neck twice within 2 years? How did that happen? Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Because he would have been coming close to his would he have been coming close to, no, he wouldn't have, would he? Another 7 years or so before he hit the 20 years minimum. Okay. So there is a danger of celebrity and power abuse. Ian Watkins' case starkly illustrates how fame and celebrity status can shield predators from scrutiny and enable them to continue offending. The psychological dynamics of celebrity worship created an environment where allegations were dismissed as implausible or motivated by jealousy. Watkins exploited the inherent power balance between a famous musician and their fans. Young, impressionable admirers were particularly vulnerable to manipulation. The desire for proximity to celebrity made some victims less likely to report abuse, fearing they wouldn't be believed. His status also influenced how authorities responded to allegations. Police appeared more inclined to doubt accusers than to investigate a successful, well-known figure. That's fair. I can't even argue with that. The case demonstrates the critical need for vigilance by authorities, venues, tour management, and fans. Warning signs existed throughout Watkins' career, but the shield of celebrity prevented proper investigation. Society must learn that fame should never grant immunity from scrutiny. If anything, those in positions of power and influence require greater oversight, as they have more opportunities to abuse that power. The failures of South Wales Police to investigate Ian Watkins properly over a 4-year period represent a catastrophic breakdown in child protection. These failures demand systemic reform to prevent similar cases in the future. Police forces must investigate all allegations of child abuse with equal rigour, regardless of the suspect's social status, wealth, or celebrity. Evidence-based assessment, not subjective credibility judgments, should drive investigations. Improved support for victims who come forward is essential. And I cannot say her surname, but so this is the ex-girlfriend who made multiple reports about Ian Watkins to the police and was ignored. I cannot say her certain name, so I'm not going to try and say it because I will butcher it. But when Joanne repeatedly reported Watkins, her concerns were dismissed. Better victim liaison and advocacy could have changed this outcome. The fact that crucial mobile phone evidence was ignored in 2009 reveals serious procedural failings. Robust systems for evidence collection, analysis, and follow-up are fundamental to effective policing. And I'm just going to throw in something. I have said this, so I'm okay to say it again, but I have said it previously on a video. When my ex-husband, as people are aware, my domestic violence from my first marriage, when my ex-husband raped me, he filmed himself. He recorded it. It was on his laptop. And when I told the police, it took them 2 years to even consider getting the laptop, by which point they said, well, it's too late now anyway. And that was looked at by the IPCC and found to be a failing on the part of the police. So I know firsthand how shockingly awful the police are at taking quite literal evidence and looking into something. Yeah, no, it was horrific. Thank you, Christine. Yeah, thanks, Neil. I'm glad I'm away from him too. Thank you, Annie. When police forces fail to protect children, they must face meaningful accountability. The IPCC investigation was important, but ongoing monitoring and reform are needed to rebuild public trust. Protecting the vulnerable. Public awareness campaigns must educate people about the signs of child sexual abuse. Many indicators existed in Watkins' behaviour but were not recognised or were dismissed. Understanding grooming patterns, warning signs, and risk factors can help identify abuse earlier. Society must create an environment where victims and witnesses feel safe coming forward. This requires believing survivors, protecting their confidentiality, and ensuring allegations are taken seriously, regardless of who the accused might be. The most crucial lesson is perhaps the simplest. Listen to victims. Multiple people tried to report Watkins' behaviour, but were not heard. Had authorities listened and investigated properly, countless acts of abuse could have been prevented. And these last couple of slides are coming from my sort of like a combination of my personal experience with the police and my professional sort of like, what could we do better? Child protection must be everyone's responsibility. Parents, teachers, youth workers, police, and members of the public all have a role to play in keeping children safe. Exactly. I could not have worded it better. This comment says it all. That is the UK right now. A guy was arrested the other day. His crime, calling someone a muppet. If I find the video, I will actually play that. Another guy was arrested the other day. Why? He was wearing a Union Jack hat. The UK has gone to shit. I don't say that lightly, but it has. When I grew up, you didn't report essay, or people would ask you, what did you do? Now, you still get that. You still get that. This is why I wouldn't go into criminal law, right? And when I needed the criminal law, it was something that was it was so traumatizing, and half the trauma come from the way the police handle things. You know, they didn't take my husband's devices, but they took mine. They still got them, actually, in the police station 8 years later. They wanted my medical records. They wanted my psychological records, not his. And that is just the way it is. And that's not just, you know, I'll use my experiences, but, you know, there's other people I know who've been through all kinds of, you know, stuff where they've had to report someone for abuse or for sexual assault or whatever. And it's not being taken seriously. And I wish I could say that, you know, these are one-off instances, but they're not. You know, the grooming gangs, in June, they announced that there was going to be like an inquiry into it all. We're now in October. They've still not selected a chair for this inquiry. Nothing has been done. No, it's fine. Yes, I do watch, and I watched Daniel. I had some contact with him and so on and so forth. He is an absolutely amazing guy. I adore him. We spoke to each other through the Johnny Depp era. So, and Steph the Alter Nerd as well. So I will be doing. I'm going to be kind of doing a bit more of what those guys do because I feel the same. I've always avoided the topics because I'm, you know, I don't want to be accused of being something I'm not, like a racist or this or, you know, but bigoted for various things. I'm not bigoted, but I have opinions about the state of the UK, what the government is doing, how the law is starting to shape up, and how it's been interpreted in completely, completely inappropriate ways that benefits some parts of society, but then works against others. So, but yes, I love the Black Belt Barrister. He's amazing. Absolutely, I would promote his channel though. He's incredible. Yeah, Jess Phillips, I was criticising there over the lack of movement on the grooming gangs stuff. Really annoying. Definitely go and watch Daniel Shen Smith, Black Belt Barrister. Yes, he does do kung fu. That's one of the reasons why I like him actually, because I've done kung fu for years. My husband is a second-degree black belt and a world champion in kung fu, as are his brothers and his dad. So martial arts was a bit of a bonding thing. Right, so where are we then? Avoiding glamorization. I'm just going to go to. I'm going to have to go to the actual PowerPoint slides because that writing is smaller than I thought it was. Okay, so, and again, this is the other criticism I had, right? So yes, the police fucked up. Ian Watkins fucked up. The police fucked up, but so did the media. And I'm going to go over some faux pas from the media as well. Avoiding glamorization. Media coverage of cases like Watkins must strike a careful balance. Whilst the public has a right to know about serious crimes, coverage should avoid glamorizing or sensationalizing abusers. Focus should remain on the impact on victims rather than the perpetrator's former celebrity status. Headlines that emphasize Watkins' fame over his crimes risk perpetuating the very celebrity worship that enabled his offending. Society must prioritise supporting survivors of child sexual abuse. This includes funding specialist services, providing long-term therapeutic support, and ensuring survivors have a voice in policy discussions. Survivors' stories and experiences should inform how we develop safeguarding practices, train professionals, and structure our criminal justice response. Their healing journey must be supported with compassion and resources. The bravery shown by those who came forward in the Watkins case, despite being initially dismissed, deserves recognition and respect. And that is a nice little segue, actually, for me to then just say this. So I don't need that one anymore. Was I still sharing the wrong slide? I hope not. I'm sorry if I was. So when we have an unusual situation here, okay? In the UK, we have two singers who are called Ian Watkins and are from South Wales. So let's see. When Ian Watkins, so we've all seen the picture of Ian Watkins, yeah? We all know what he looks like. But we did unfortunately have the odd news outlet. Is it this one? No, it's not that one. This one. All right. We had this news outlet. And it can still be found today. Ian Watkins, lead singer of the Welsh rock band Lost Prophets, has pleaded guilty to a string of sex offences, among them the attempted rape of a baby. And they have this picture here, who is actually Ian H. Watkins from Steps, the band Steps, not Lost Prophets. I think it's fair to say that this poor guy, who is not this guy, received such horrific abuse and backlash online. You can only imagine the kind of abuse that he endured. This one, right? Sorry. So this guy was reported to be erroneously by some media outlets to be the person who had pleaded guilty to a string of sex offences, including the attempted rape of a baby. This guy is not this guy. No, exactly. So that is Ian Watkins from Lost Prophets. This is Ian Watkins from the band Steps, who had a hits with 5, 6, 7, 8 and Tragedy and stuff like that. You know, a really wholesome family guy. And he was subjected to really horrific abuse, which was just absolutely disgusted. And it's all because people confused him because they have the same name, basically. So here are some of the tweets that he had. literally people calling for him to be shot. It didn't just ruin him personally, it also caused a lot of problems for Steps, the band themselves, who were a very, very successful band, in the kind of 90s, 2000s, particularly. And he had to keep putting out, I am not the same person, we just have the same name. But people, even if they did their due diligence, although they had different dates of birth, they were, I think, the same age. I think they were born the same year, or there was a year between them. And then if you try to, they're both singers, and they literally live half an hour apart, 19 miles away from each other. So there was a big misunderstanding, and it wasn't helped by the media, who were just not taking care with the story and reporting. So he did actually sue. He got a substantial settlement and an apology. This had a huge detrimental effect because H is actually he was a gay man, and he was I can't remember if he was going through adoption or surrogacy, and you can imagine when he's been wrongly accused of being the person who's just admitted to the attempted rape of a baby, that nearly derailed a lot of things that were going on in his life. So yeah, that was pretty wild. Okay. Look at the chat. Yeah, that's true. Even in Wales, 19 miles is it's like the other side of the country. It's still all South Wales, though. And, as I said at the start of the video, South Wales community is really tight-knit. And it's really like the dictionary definition of a community. So when these kind of this misreporting was just echoing around, his life was made hell, and it's taken a long time to undo that damage as well. So, okay, so where are we now? So we've got a bit of a summary. Then we have got the sentencing remarks. So between it's just a recap. 1997 to 2012, he had his rise to fame as the lead singer of Lost Prophets, achieved international success with 5 studio albums and arena tours, and he used celebrity status to abuse vulnerable young fans. 2008, 2012, there were ignored warnings. South Wales Police received 8 reports and 3 intelligence logs about Watkins' behaviour, but failed to properly investigate. Critical opportunities to prevent further abuse were missed. December 2012, he was arrested. Finally, the police discovered indecent images during an investigation of unrelated drugs offence. He was charged with 13 child sex offences, including the attempted rape of babies. November 2013, he pleaded guilty on the day of the trial, but just before the jury was sworn in, to multiple offences. The judge described the case as plumbing new depths of depravity and noted complete lack of remorse. December 2013, Watkins was sentenced to 29 years imprisonment plus 6 years on license. The two mothers who facilitated abuse received 14 and 17 years respectively. Lost profits immediately disbanded. 2014 to 2023, he was held at HMP Wakefield High Security Prison, attacked by inmates in August 2023, but survived with non-life-threatening injuries. And then October 2025, he died following a violent attack in prison. 2 men have been arrested on suspicion of his murder. His death highlighted ongoing violence in prisons against sex offenders. And you know what? I will share this with you, actually. I will actually share this. Because this is not the only case I could cover where violence in prison occurred. Sorry, this might be a bit big. This guy, this is Lee Foy. He was sent to prison for murdering his ex-girlfriend. He stabbed her something like over 50 times. I went to school with his sister. She's nice. Whilst he was in prison, he took they were having like these kind of, you know, when you sit down and you share feelings and do therapy work, these group therapy things. And there was a guy in there who was a child sex offender, and Lee ended up killing him in prison. Stomped at his head kept stomping on his head with such force that it split open like a watermelon. So he is now serving another life sentence for that killing as well. He went on in 2 separate instances, he cut off each of his ears, his own ears. And I think that's part of stuff like that, like because I've got that experience as well, and that's someone I actually know. Because I have that experience, I'm like, how are these people doing this stuff? You know, how are they able to do this stuff? So, yes. That was just a little something additional to share there. Not a nice guy. Okay. Right, so we're at the point now where we have the judicial remarks from the sentencing. What I will say is it is a very hard thing to listen to. It is very detailed. And if anyone doesn't, you know, is likely to become upset or it doesn't want to listen, then, you know, that's absolutely fine. I just want to make people aware. However, I don't want to be talking about this case without people actually understanding exactly what this guy did. Right, you know, I've given an overview, but this is information we have about the details. It's 13 pages long. I'm only going to read about the actual charges. I'm not going to read the stuff about the sentencing themselves. We know what the sentences they got were. And this does deal with both with Watkins and the 2 mothers. Sorry, I've got Mia snoring again. Every time I've got you in here doing a video, you're snoring. Okay, so if everyone is happy to, is happy that they've been pre-warned that some of this is quite graphic and detailed. There's no photos, there's no videos, nothing like that. It's just the judge describing the instance with very graphic language. So I will be able to see the chat because I'm in a different screen now to read theirs. Okay, so this is Mr. Justice Royce. Those who have appeared in these courts at the bar or on the bench over many years see and hear a large number of horrific cases. This case, however, breaks new ground. Any decent person looking at and listening to the material here will experience shock, revulsion, anger, and incredulity. What you three did plumbed new depths of depravity. So this is Watkins and the two mothers this is their sentencing remarks. They were together for sentencing. You, Watkins, achieved fame and success as the lead singer of the Lost Prophets. You had many fawning fans that gave you power. You knew you could use that power to induce young female fans to help satisfy your apparently insatiable lust and take part in the sexual abuse of their young children. Away from the highlights of your public performances lay a dark and sinister side. What is the background? Count 18 dates back to March 2007. You met TT. They anonymized the young girl here, and they refer to her as TT. You met TT after a Lost Prophets concert when she was a 16-year-old virgin. The prospect of taking her virginity excited you. You got her to dress in a schoolgirl's outfit and you videoed her and you having oral, vaginal, and anal sex. You asked her whether she enjoyed being your underage slut. At the end, you urinated over her face and told her to drink it. That gives some insight into your attitude to young females at that time over 5 years before the counts relating to B and P. Count 19 dates back to August 2008. The girl, KJ, was another fan, age 16. You videoed her having oral sex with you. She is to be seen snorting white powder, which you told her was cocaine. The taking of drugs linked with your sexual activities is a recurring theme. Count 31 relates to about 90 indecent photos of children. They include 45 at level 4 and 2 at level 5. Level 4 and 5 are pretty serious. 5 is the highest range, the highest level of seriousness, just to give some context there. The age range of the children is from 2 to 14 years. Count 32 involves images and videos of extreme pornography. There are 22 images of bestiality, including oral and vaginal sex with dogs. And now he refers to Watkins and B being the 10-month-old little boy. The mother of the 10-month-old little boy. You, B, were only 19 when you met Watkins in late 2011. The communications between the two of you in March and April 2012 are seriously disturbing. That you were manipulated by Watkins may be obvious, but you were a mother. Your infant was only 10 months old. A mother naturally loves, protects, shields, nurtures, and cherishes. Your infant would have trusted you implicitly. You totally betrayed that trust. What did you do? You had detailed discussions with Watkins about the sexual acts to which the two of you were going to subject your infant. Again, it's now going to get very graphic, so, last reminder that how bad this is going to get. You told the police you met up with Watkins at the Copthorne Hotel in Cardiff. On 21st March, Watkins says, "Come down this weekend and we can fuck him up again." You text back saying, "Tell me if you want to get your dick in our boy." You had previously referred to getting your boy high on ice, i.e. methamphetamine. This is what led up to the session at the K West Hotel in London on the night of the 2nd and 3rd of April, recorded on the video. What did you do? You presented your baby to him so that he could try to rape him. First in the mouth, then in the anus. Watkins can be seen spitting on the boy's bottom to facilitate this attempt. You can be heard and seen encouraging him. Could there be a greater betrayal? Then what did you do? You took your little boy's penis in your mouth and gave him oral sex. You then took the boy's hand and put it on your own vagina. Watkins then masturbated the boy. The planning and graphic detail are bad enough. The videoing of what you were both doing is an aggravating factor. The enjoyment both of you can be seen to derive from what you were doing is both sickening and incomprehensible. What happened after this? On 24th of May, you send Watkins a message saying the boy is ready to be abused. I'm just coming to check chat. I told you guys it's bad, and it's going to get worse, just an FYI. I agree. I'm glad he didn't get out of jail. Absolutely. But as it is really, really bad. We continue. On the 2nd of August, his message is, "To be honest though, I think we have gone easy on him too far. Time to teach him and make him learn to love it." The evidence indicates you met at the Maldron Hotel in Cardiff. Then on 9th of September, you sent Watkins a photo of you licking your son's penis. Counts 4 to 7 relate to this. In all, it is a dreadful catalogue of abuse of a previously innocent boy to satisfy your own interests and lusts. So now we're going on to Watkins and P, which is the mother of the 1-year-old girl. You, P, were a little older than B. You are now 24. Your communications with Watkins start in August 2012. It's not long before the communications turned to child sex abuse. There was talk of moving in together. Watkins said, "If you belong to me, so does your baby." You responded, "Understandable. A mother-daughter slave duo worshipping you." Watkins said, "That's all she will know, a life of filth." P said, "The good thing about babies is put anything near their mouths and they will start sucking it." She went on to talk about both her and her baby sharing Watkins' penis with their tongues. The subsequent communications planning is even more depraved activities for this little girl, including forcing her to engage in sex with animals and how to take drugs, defy belief. This, P, was your own flesh and blood you were talking about. Watkins, you referred to the girl as my little fuck toy, and that sums up how you regarded her. Not as a human being, but simply as a sexual object there for your pleasure. You, Watkins, then said you could not wait to get mother and daughter taking crack cocaine. You spoke of whoring her out to fat old men who would pay thousands. You went on, she needs to know Mummy and Daddy don't love her. She is just there to make us come. You spoke of torturing her for fun. Count 11 and 13 relate to the taking of photos by P of the little girl's genitalia and sending them to you, Watkins. Count 14 relates to you, P, penetrating your daughter's vagina with your finger and sending a photo of that and similar images to Watkins. Your response, Watkins, was to say you could not wait to stretch her. The lengthy split-screen Skype session on the 12th of September is again very disturbing viewing and listening. You, Watkins, encourage P to spit on her finger and penetrate her daughter. You, P, do just that with apparent enjoyment. Watkins is masturbating throughout. That is count 8. You are both pleaded guilty to conspiring to rape the little girl and to conspiring sexually to assault her. The evidence is compelling that you, P, took your infant to meet up with Watkins at the Travel Lodge in Caerphilly on 2nd of October and or at the Radisson in Cardiff on 23rd of October. What happened there is not recorded. You for a long time lied saying you had never met up with him. Now you say you did, but you left your baby with someone else. The evidence to me is compelling that you took your baby, but I do not deal with you on that basis as I bear in mind you have been charged with conspiracy rather than completed offences. Let there be no mistake, however. This plea means you accept that the two of you agreed that the little girl should be raped by Watkins, and you both intended that that should take place. You, Watkins, initiated and orchestrated the appalling abuse, but you, P, betrayed your daughter for your own selfish ends. So discount for pleas. So B got the standard 1/3 discount, as I said. That's why she ended up with 14 years, because she entered her plea at the first reasonable opportunity. So straight away she pleaded guilty. Watkins and P waited until just before the jury was sworn in on the second day. The judge makes a point. It's arguable that the case was so overwhelming that he should receive no credit, but he did give them the conventional 10% because the pleas spared a jury and the victims from having to live through all of this. And they would have had to watch the videos as well, which was unimaginable. It's bad enough having to read the details. So the pre-sentencing report, they talk about dangerousness. He talks about Watkins first. You spoke to the author of your desire to shock and your craving to push sexual boundaries. This craving was fueled by your use of cocaine and methamphetamine, which increased your sexual aggression. You spoke of not knowing to what extremes you would have gone, but for your arrest. It is difficult to imagine anything much worse. The author concludes, Mr. Watkins presents a high risk of causing serious sexual, physical, emotional, and psychological harm to children, both male and female, and to women, specifically his female sexual partners. The author also says, it is also my assessment that the child victims in this case appear to be coincidental to his need to dominate and to test out the extent to which his sexual partners would collude and participate in his sexual interests. So what he's saying there is that basically Watkins was, the infants were really a test to see how far he could get women to, give him what he wanted. Would they do anything for him? And apparently, yes, they would. Psychiatric report. Miss O'Neill told me on the last occasion they had a psychiatric report, but it needed updating in the light of the changes in plea. There has been put before me a short report from Dr. Huckle, prepared after visits to Watkins in September and October. It refers to a report by a psychologist. It does not deal with the issue of dangerousness, and Miss O'Neill specifically does not ask for any adjournment to obtain further such evidence. I bear in mind a number of factors. 1. The facts of these offences against the babies are enormously serious. 2. The offending dates back to 2007. 3. The delight that Watkins evidently has when engaging in the most terrible offences involving tiny children. 4. His need to dominate any sexual partner and his corruptive influence over young females. 5. The using of drugs in combination with sexual assaults. 6. The interest in extreme pornography. 7. The almost complete lack of resource in this last respect. The evidence of the phone conversations after the guilty pleas on the last occasion is enlightening. There is one further matter of concern. One of the passwords you chose, which needed the assistance of the GCHQ, which is like the British intelligence headquarters, which needed the assistance of GCHQ to break, was I fuck kids. That was his password. That was his password. I fuck without a C, kids with a Z at the end. I have no hesitation in concluding that there is a significant risk to the public, in particular to young females and children, of serious harm occasioned by the commission by you of further specified offences. That risk is high. Then he moves on to parent B, the 10-month-old boy, his parent. There is a psychiatric report. There is reference in that report to your infatuation with Watkins and to his strong influence in your drug taking with him. The future risk of you reoffending in a similar fashion is assessed as medium. It is not considered that you were suffering from a mental illness at the material time. Pre-sentencing report. The author's assessment is that you pose high risk of causing serious harm. The specific risk would be failure to protect children from others and sexual abuse by you. It is said, however, that you appear genuinely devastated for the harm you have caused your child and how his future will be affected. And then parent P. I've read the report from the clinical psychologist. That was prepared at a time when you were still protesting your innocence of these offences. There is an addendum dated 17th December. The psychologist concluded that you had a mixed personality disorder. She also considered it likely you used your daughter as a tool to secure Watkins' acceptance of you. She considered that in the long term you would benefit from an opportunity to engage in psychological interventions targeting your personality disorder and sexual offending. The risk of you reoffending in similar manner is assessed as relatively low. The pre-sentencing report. The assessment given is that you pose a medium risk of harm to children based on your current behaviour and the fact that you no longer have access to your own child who was most at risk. So then we go into mitigation. Are there any factors that would reduce? So they use the sentencing guidelines. They start at, the highest they can give, given the circumstances, and then they take into account mitigation and to reduce the sentence. So, Watkins, you are age 36 and have no previous convictions. Your mitigation is your late plea. I also take into account, so that's 10%. I also take into account that though your offences over the last 6 years, that through your offences over the last 6 years, you have lost a valued position with your group. I also take note of the letters written on your behalf from those who know a different side of you. B. You are age 21. You have one previous conviction for an offence of fraud for which you received a suspended sentence. Apart from that, you are of good character. Your principal mitigation is the fact that you pleaded guilty at the first reasonable opportunity. There appears to be genuine remorse. P. You are age 25 now and are of previous good character. You have the mitigation of a late plea. There are signs of remorse. You, P and B, will hopefully mature and on your eventual release will steer clear of the corrupting influence of the likes of Watkins. I consider that in your case B and your case P, I can treat you as falling just short of the threshold necessary for dangerousness and determine sentences are appropriate. With Watkins, that is not the case. Factors indicating greater culpability are the planning and its graphic detail, the deliberate targeting of a vulnerable victim, the commission of the offences by two people acting together, the abuse of trust in the cases of B and P, the abuse of power in the case of Watkins, the commission of offences whilst under the influence of drugs. Factors indicating greater harm are the fact that a baby is particularly vulnerable. In the case of Watkins, more than one victim. Repeated assaults on the same victim. Additional degradation through taking photos or videos as part of the offending. We are not too far off now. It's only a couple more pages. What is the position in relation to any harm suffered by these babies? While it is right to say there is no evidence of any residual physical harm, it is not possible to say what psychological harm may have been suffered or may be suffered in the future. As is pointed out in paragraph 2.10 of the pre-sentencing report for B, given his very young age, it's unclear what effect the abuse would have had on him. However, this child is likely to have lifelong psychological difficulties coming to terms with the enormity of what has happened to him. Despite him being placed in long-term foster care, he will eventually learn the truth of his childhood and the abuse he was subjected to, the effects of which are significant, and we cannot and should not underestimate the effect this will have on him for the rest of his life. The statement from those who are now responsible for his care is very telling in this context. One obvious immediate consequence is that they will be deprived of the love and care of their natural mother. There is, however, disturbing evidence in respect of your daughter, P. When her hair was analysed, it showed she had been exposed to methamphetamine. It is said on behalf of P that she was only exposed to methamphetamine when in company with Watkins, but it is urged that P might have gone back to her baby and somehow exposed her to it. It is not an issue which requires determination. For rape of a child under 13, where there is abuse of trust or more than one offender acting together, the suggested range is 11 to 17 years with a starting point of 13 years. The same applies to assault by penetration of a child under 13. The guideline recognises that starting points and ranges are not rigid and that the circumstances of a particular case may justify going outside the guideline. This is a case where, in my judgment, such departure would be justified. That is because of the horrific nature of the offences involved in these babies and other factors in respect of culpability and harm to which I have referred. The suggested range for sexual assault of a child under 13 is 1 to 4 years, with a starting point of 2 years. The range and starting point for taking indecent photographs and distributing them varies according to the level and volume. Sentences. The Watkins and /B counts. Counts 1 and 2. Bear in mind, these were attempts and not the full offences, although the video shows how close to the full offences these attempts were. There was, though, more than one offence. They were followed by further assaulting in count 3. I take a starting point of 17 years after trial. In your case, Watkins, that reduces to 15.3 years. In your case, B, it reduces to 11 years and 4 months. On count 3, my starting point is 4 years, which reduces in your case, Watkins, to 3.6 years, which I round down to 3 years, 6 months, and in your case, P, it reduces to 2 years, 8 months. Those will run concurrently, so that's together at the same time, not one after the other. Count 4 happened much later in September. It was a wholly separate incident of licking your son's penis and taking photos of it. My starting point is 4 years. With discount for plea, the sentence is 2 years and 8 months. There will be concurrent sentences of 18 months after discount on each of the counts 5 and 6. But those sentences will run consecutively to the previous sentences on B. Total sentence, therefore, in her case is 14 years. On count 7, Watkins, in your case, you did not produce the photo, although it was taken for your benefit. The sentence will be 12 months concurrent. The Watkins and P counts. Counts 8 and 9. You, P, enthusiastically penetrated your daughter with your finger at Watkins' behest. The lengthy and distressing Skype episode has already been described. Count 9 is the agreement that she should be raped. My starting point for each of you is 16 years before discount for plea. That reduces it to 14.4 years, which I round down to 14 years, 4 months on each count concurrent. On count 10, there will be a concurrent sentence of 3 years after discount. On counts 11 and 12, P, your sentence after discount is 2 years concurrent. Count 14 is a separate incident of you, P, holding open your daughter's genitals. You took a photo of that and sent it to Watkins. The starting point after trial on count 14 is 4 years, reducing to 3 years, 6 months on plea. There will be concurrent sentences of 12 months on count 15 and 16. As I propose to make these sentences consecutive to your other sentences, I have to consider totality. Having done so, I reduce the sentence on count 14 to 2 years, 8 months. The total sentence for you, P, is 17 years. In your case, Watkins, I have to consider the remaining counts in totality. On counts 13, 17, 18, 19, 30, and 31, there will be concurrent sentences of 12 months. I am satisfied that you are a deeply corrupting influence. You are highly manipulative. You are a sexual predator. You are dangerous. The public, and in particular, young females and children, need protection from you. On one view, this is a case which would justify a denunciatory indeterminate sentence, as in Saunders. I bear in mind that such a sentence is one of last resort. The alternative is a very long extended sentence. In my judgment, justice and protection of the public can and should be achieved by such a very long sentence. The sentences on your offences with B must be consecutive to the sentences on your offences with P, but I have to bear in mind totality. I therefore adjust sentences in this way. The sentences on counts 1 and 2 will be 15 years. The sentences on counts 8 and 9 will be 14 years consecutive. Custodial term, 29 years. There will be an extended period of license under section 226A of 6 years on these counts. All other sentences will be concurrent. Your total sentence is therefore one of 35 years. In your case, that means you will have to serve 2/3 of the custodial term before you can be considered for release by the parole board. If you are released, you will remain on license for the extended period. In your case, B and P, the usual rule will apply. You will be eligible for release after serving half your sentence. You will then be on license. The detailed provisions will be explained to you by your counsel. Oh. So that was a difficult read. That was quite hard to get through. Has anyone got any questions or anything that they want to say? Yes, I do. I agree with you, Christina. I do hope that they've had a good family taking care of them. Yes, you and me both. I don't mean this to sound like insensitive or anything. I mean, I have the advantage that I am slightly more desensitized than most people would be, because that's just part of even the law degree level. Like, you have to learn about these things, and the horrors are, there's no getting away from them. And plus, my husband, because he works in child and adolescent mental health services, the stuff he sees and hears is it's on par with that. Like, most days he sees and hears horror stories that even if they're not that bad, they're not far away. Like, he's my hero. I don't know how he goes to work and comes home and does it. I personally find it to get through stuff like that, but there are kids' stories to be told. There's the realities of a crime. When we say, oh, he was just a paedophile, no, I think he was worse than that. And I think he had it not been for that unrelated drugs charge, I dread to think of where it would have gone. I also think that he did actually successfully rape those children on some of the times that weren't filmed, some of the meetups that weren't filmed. But it wasn't provable. So thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, it really does. Yeah, he's He's my hero. He's seen and dealt with some crap and saved plenty of children's lives, and I'm immensely proud of him. And before I come on to do this, I went through my slides with him, and I was like, "What do you think? What do you think? Should I talk about this? How should I approach it?" And I managed to get some views from him, which I factored into this as well, which shaped some of the slides, and that's been really, really helpful. And some of the ideas about, like how can we prevent this happening again? That section on my slide, some of that come from my husband too. Some of the ideas, because his boots on the ground, so he has ideas onto how to do better, what reforms are needed. I will thank him for his service. He is a great man. Thank you. Has anyone got any questions? Anyone need therapy after that? It was hard. But I hope no one's traumatized. That's not my intention. Has not been to traumatize anyone. These are very real crimes, and they needed to be treated with some respect, but they need to be heard too. Why did I pick this case? Well, obviously, the fact that he was murdered yesterday was like, okay, it got me thinking again. This particular case has always struck a chord with me from my roots to South Wales, from the fact that I absolutely loved the band, the pure disappointment and devastation I felt when the allegations came to light. Personal anger as well as a mum. As a mum, I just cannot. I get the fact that the kids' mums sacrificed their children for a pop star, for a rock star, whatever you want to call him, because they were obsessed with him, was just absolutely wild. So it's going to be the theme of your channel. The theme of my channel, I think, going forward, aside from the Lively and Baldoni case and all the related multitudes of cases with them, is talk. Like I've been really quite nervous about putting myself back out there over the years, and this case has been the first time in 8 years where I've done it, and I still I've not been controversial. I've gone out my way to keep opinions to myself for fear of upsetting anyone. But to me right now, and I'm seeing it all over X, Britain has become such a shit show, and it needs to be discussed. Crimes have always been an interest to me. I like talking about them. So yeah, the mothers did get off a lot easier. So the mum of the little boy, she went to prison for 14 years because she did get her plea in quickly. The mum of the little girl, she went to prison for 17 years. I mean, they would have both served the half of their sentences by now. So whether or not they're out, I don't know. It's going to be hard to find out because their names were anonymized. We all need therapy. Yeah, that is one saving grace. Absolutely, he can never do it again. So that's good. Will Blake Lively ever settle? No, her ego is far too large. That woman is just, oh God. I cannot believe that she got a nobody. Do you know what? That declarant, right? It really bothers me. It really bothers me, right? Because the time that Justin Baldoni was working on that project with Claire Ayubi, that was in 2021, 21, 22. It was years before the meeting with Steve Sarowitz. There was a delay in it being released. It wasn't released until September 2024. It was actually released on Van Zandt Day, by the way, the 27th of September. So, yeah, it's released. But I mean, she walked in and said, oh, yes, Justin Baldoni was mean to me 3 years ago. I don't want him at the promotion. So she throws him out of the promotion of her film. At the same time, Blake Lively throws him out of the promotion of It Ends With Us. And then she handed, she recorded that in that meeting for God knows why, because we still haven't heard it. But then she gave it to Blake Lively because the Bates number that in the declaration, the Bates number where it says that the recording is a true copy, etc., etc. The Bates number, it starts with BL, so that is Blake Lively. So Blake Lively entered that into evidence at Discovery. She is the one that produced it in Discovery. She didn't need to subpoena it from anyone. And I don't understand why this woman has a falling out. 3 years later, she's still not over it. And then she's following the Blake Lively playbook. She gets a secret recording. At some point, she is friendly enough with Blake Lively to have handed it to her. And then a year later, it's being produced for something that has absolutely no relevance whatsoever. There we go. And that's my views on that declaration. It's just absolute bullshit. I agree, Tony Blair, everything is all his fault. Absolutely. I'm going to have to look into that one, Jane. I haven't actually heard of it. Well, we'll look into that. Thank you for that. Oh, At the Beach is saying that was correct, right? Okay, yeah. If it's crazy, I'll go and look into it. I've got a thing for the weird, the wonderful, the most extreme. There is I'm going to say something now. This is just my opinion. But I have followed I might do one on the Lucy Letby murders as well. Because, and some people may not agree with me here, but having watched the evidence and the problems with the evidence, listened to some of the experts, I'm not convinced she is guilty. I'm not entirely convinced that Lucy Letby is guilty of the murders of those babies. I think it at least needs a retrial. But that's just my opinion. So yeah, I've got a few things I could do. A few things I want to do coming up. I'm going to do a special for the gunpowder plot as well on November 5th. Right. It's not just me, is it, Neil? There are problems with the evidence and all that. There are big problems. I do think she's a scapegoat. Please go. What, the Lucy Letby one? I think it needs yeah, she has been found guilty, but they have they found out that some of the evidence which could have exonerated her, at least for some of the murders, was suppressed. And if she could have been exonerated for some, that calls into doubt the others. Then, yeah, it is full. It is full of holes. The case is problematic. I mean, we could still get to a point where she is found guilty, but I do not think she's had a fair trial. I don't. I don't think her trial was fair. So I definitely need to cover that. Yes, I got Guy Fawkes, the Gunpowder Plot, for the 5th of November. That'll be coming out. Oh, my voice is getting sore now. What's her last name? Who? Letby. I don't know. Are you talking to me? Should I do something? Because we got October 31st coming up, Halloween. So we've got a few things happening on Halloween. Obviously, there's the Jen Abel repleading of her second amended complaint. If she's going to replead against Stephanie Jones, that is due on Halloween. However, it is also the anniversary of the New York Times metadata, and specifically the metadata that I found. So, do I do something or not? Do the Essex witch trials. I love witch trials. I might do that. That's actually a really good suggestion. I love those kind of historical, the medieval stuff. I really like that kind of era of crime and punishment. I feel like we're also heading back there in the UK, where women are going to be found guilty of heresy. Heresy by tweets. Yeah, let's have a metadata day. I think that's the New England one. Okay. Yeah, well, that sounds like some really good feedbacks, actually. I will be kickstarting both the funny laws from around the world and the historic crimes and trials. I'll probably do most of them by pre-recorded. I've actually taken quite a step back from live streams just for now. I'm not going to go into any detail as such, but I've got a bit of a health thing I'm dealing with, so that's why I haven't live streamed since Van Zandt Day. And I've got a few things coming up. I've got surgery at the start of next month as well, so I wanted to do this one though because obviously everything that happened yesterday, and I felt I was going to do it as a pre-recorded, but then I thought, you know what? No, I'd like to actually just chat with the chat, basically. Quite miss having these chats. So I'm glad I did it that way. But I will... I thank you, Christina. Yeah, my pre-records have gone for a bit of a facelift. So I rebranded, got a new logo, new my thumbnails. I've redesigned them. Trying to give them a bit of a nicer look. And I'm doing more kind of reads from court documents now as well, which saves me a lot of time. I can just read in real time and then give a bit of an opinion. So, yeah. No, this is true. True. I do need a producer really to do as many to do more of what I want to do. Right now, I'm not in a position for that, but maybe in the future when I'm a bit better. Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah, I am pleased with that. It's turned out really well. Yesterday was nuts. I was like, every time I finished a video, something else was unsealed. So I was just like, 5 videos in one day. But it's also been helpful because, like, when I do lives, I love to chat and just keep waffling on and on and on. I could talk all day. And then they turn into like this now is getting close to 3 hours long. And thank you for everyone for being amazing and sticking with it. But people don't want that for every video. So when I do the pre-records, I'm able to get things done in like less than half an hour, which is much better. It's generated a lot more new subscribers. The look of the channel is much better, and the content's more focused because the videos are about specific things and they are separated into a separate video for specific things rather than throwing a bunch of things into one video. I'm not the greatest at lives on my own. I'm not. I usually like to have someone with me, I guess, and I bounce off them and we talk like we're in the same room together having tea. And it just feels like a natural conversation. I don't love doing lives on my own, but here I am doing it anyway. I mean, things are made quite easy for me in many ways because I don't have a producer, but I do have, I have great moderators who are just amazing. If I want to do something, I try where I can. I'll ask them what they think, or if they offer suggestions, I'll look at that, which is great because they usually got more experience than I've got as well. Oh, you can hype you can't hype lives? Are you not able to hype lives? Can I say though as well? Because I keep forgetting to say it, and I also don't want to I don't want to have to ask this, but I'd love it if anyone could like, subscribe, and hype my stuff and help me out. Thank you. Oh, okay. Okay. I did not know that. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, I'll have to make a point of starting the video by remembering the like, subscribe, and hype messages. I just keep forgetting about it. I don't know. So anyway, I have kept everyone long enough. I am sorry if anyone ends up traumatized over the details of that. Thank you for bearing with. It was something I really wanted to talk about. Oh, okay. You get 3 hypes. Oh, okay. You have to show me how to pick a video then. Do I have to? I don't know. Oh, Neil, you're a little sweetheart. Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you guys for letting me know. I don't know how it all works still. I'm still finding out. Okay, so I am going to I just have to say which video. Okay, is it a particular video, is it? Christina, I will be picking your brains about this in messages. And that's a prime example, right, of having great moderators who are a fountain of knowledge. Okay, you can hype one video 3 times. Right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Christina, for that. Okay, I am going to, all videos will have okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to figure it all out because I've got to go around to all my fellow content creators as well and show them love and support. I don't really get time often, but I really do need to make more time. Okay. If there's one I would like hype, tell any. I'm the one I did on the depositions. I think it's got a picture of Ellen on it. That would be a great one. All right, I am going to leave everyone now and let everyone go because it's nearly midnight here anyway. So, and I'm kind of tired. But thank you for coming to listen. I feel a bit, I don't know, like I've got crap off my chest, which I needed to. So, good riddance to this cunt. But, it is what it is. I don't approve of violence as a rule in prisons. I think the prison guards should have prevented it. That being said, couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Oh, I need a lot of hype to make up the top one. Yeah, that's fair enough then. All right. Yes, it was a very heavy topic. Lots of love to you too, just snooping. Right, I'm going to head off. I will see you all soon. Thanks, guys. See you in the next video.